Hi, welcome to 5.07. The government is a referee 2. We're starting with slide 1. You have learned that the economy is like a game. It has players, and those individuals are expected to play by the rules. But just as it is in a game, sometimes people do not want to abide by the rules when they play in the economy. Just as games need referees and penalties to keep players in line and make sure the game is played fairly, so does the economy. In addition to its roles as taxing authority, provider of public goods, and major economic consumer, the government has another role: referee. Governments are the guardians of fairness in the economy. The economic system would be unable to function fairly and freely without government action. The notion that producers and consumers should be free to make their own economic decisions is so powerful that most governments today embrace the free market system. Of course, all governments get involved in the market in certain ways. In fact, most countries actually have a mixed economy that simply leans in the direction of the free market. Still, a mixed economy doesn't function like a pure free market economy does. The intervention of the government has an important influence over the operation of the country's economic system. You already know about many of these influences, but it is helpful to look at the overall effects of government participation in the economy. This will help you develop a picture of how the free market system functions in the real world. The circular flow model. A free market economy operates according to a circular flow model. In the pure, simplified version of the free market system, the only players are consumers and producers. The decisions and actions of each have an influence over the other. Producers make goods and provide services, and consumers purchase and use these goods and services. Consumers provide the factors of production through labor and investments, and producers pay for this labor with wages, for these investments with profits. The wages and profits are used to purchase more goods and services and to continue inputting labor and investment. The important thing to note about the circular flow model is how dependent consumers and producers are upon each other. Not only do they rely on each other for important things, such as labor and wages, but their decisions influence each other. Diverting the flow. The basic circular flow model depicts a free flow of money and resources between producers and consumers based on voluntary exchanges in the marketplace. But you know that in reality, the market has another important player: the government. Governments perform a variety of actions that affect the economy and change the way things go in the circular flow model. For one thing, the government forces people to pay taxes, diverting money from the flow. The government also gets involved as a referee in the market, regulating relationships between producers and consumers through antitrust regulations and consumer protection regulations. These regulations force their way into the circular flow, changing the economic flow just as a canal or dam changes the way a river flows. The effect of taxes. Taxation is the most obvious disruption of the circular flow. By forcing people to give up some of their money to the government, taxation takes away money that could have been used to buy goods and services and to make investments. Individual taxes reduce the purchasing power of consumers, and corporate taxes reduce potential wages and cut into investment in the other factors of production. In this way, taxation causes some leakage of money out of the economy and into the government treasury. But the government spends this money, so much of the leakage ends up flowing right back to the consumers in the form of public goods and government programs. Tax money is also sent to producers in the form of government contracts. Producers use this money to buy more factors of production, which sends money flowing back to consumers as in the circular flow model. So, even though there is a disruption of the flow, the government actually acts like a holding pond for money before releasing it back into the circular flow. No money is trapped or lost, although the flow is slowed a bit because of the diversion. Budget imbalances. Ideally, the amount of money diverted from the flow through taxation equals the amount of money injected back into the economy through government spending. In this case, government involvement in the economy is no more than a temporary disruption in the circular flow. In reality, however, There is often an imbalance between the amount of money a government takes in and the amount of money it spends. How does this imbalance affect the circular flow? Watch the slideshow to see what happens when governments have a budget deficit or budget surplus, and you can go ahead and do that on your own. Circular flow and antitrust laws. Government participation in the market in the form of taxation and spending may divert the flow, but it does not fundamentally alter the outcome of the circular flow model. But what about government regulations? How do these affect the circular flow? Consider antitrust laws that attempt to keep competition as free and open as possible by prohibiting anti-competitive behaviors and unfair business practices. The purpose of these laws is to achieve efficiency, innovation, low prices, and responsiveness to consumer demand. These laws also attempt to prevent companies from artificially raising prices and lowering wages. By preventing monopolies and unfair practices that artificially raise prices and reduce wages, government regulations ensure a free flow of exchange between producers and consumers. To the extent that antitrust laws succeed in limiting anti-competitive behaviors, they facilitate circular flow. Circular flow and consumer protection. Like the antitrust laws that help keep the circular flow flowing, consumer protection regulations help keep consumers safe from the many risks present in the marketplace. But how does this help keep the flow going? A world without consumer protection regulations would be a world of greater insecurity for consumers. This would most likely dampen consumer spending and cut into profits. With decreased profits, businesses would have less money to spend on factors of production, lowering income for workers and resulting in reduced purchasing power for consumers who are, after all, able to consume because of the wages they earn as workers. The overall effect would be a slower, smaller economy. But when the government protects consumers, not only are lives saved and injuries averted, consumer confidence is raised as well. When consumers feel more secure in the marketplace, they buy more. When more spending by consumers means more income coming back to consumers as businesses spend money on factors of production, especially labor. If the regulations succeed in having this effect, they facilitate circular flow. Regulatory compliance and circular flow. How do the costs of regulatory compliance affect circular flow? When businesses spend money on compliance, they pass along the cost to consumers, who pay higher prices. This means that businesses get the money back and they return it to the economy in the form of investment in the factors of production. So once again, the money is diverted, but only temporarily. When businesses have to pay fines or penalties for violating regulations, some of the flow of income that would have gone to businesses is diverted toward the government. But the money government collects for violation goes back to consumers and producers in the form of government spending on programs, contracts, and wages. The volume of money stays roughly the same, but once again, the diversion slows it down. Mixed versus command economies. Government actions do not fundamentally alter the circular flow of a free market system. Some government actions, such as taxation and spending, may temporarily divert the flow, slowing it down but not stopping it. Other actions, such as antitrust and consumer protection laws, actually help keep the flow going. Governments that are not committed to the free market system also get involved in economic planning by directly taking over many economic decisions. These governments can have a more pronounced effect on the circular flow model. You can go ahead and watch the slideshow on your own. Government and free market economies. Review. When you look at government involvement in the economy, you can see how its many actions divert and slow the flow of the circular flow model. You can also see that ultimately they facilitate and speed this flow. The government helps manage the flow to keep its movement as vigorous as possible. Businesses are required to obey government regulations. Business owners have to know what the regulations are and understand the process of compliance. It is not always easy. The regulations and procedures are complex and subject to frequent modifications. Plus, it is usually very expensive to comply. Businesses often face high costs to comply with regulations, and if they violate the regulations, they pay stiff penalties. And this ends 5.07, the government is a referee 2. And our next recording will be a 5.08, the government is a police officer 1. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, and have a great day.